call to order the meeting for Wednesday, July 2nd. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Allen,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton, Commissioner Taylor,
Present.
Commissioner Crowley,
Present.
and Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
I'd like to welcome everyone here in the audience as well as everyone watching or listening at home. We will begin the meeting today with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Terrence Robertson with Bethany Baptist Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we all please bow our heads in prayer. Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord. We just thank you for this meeting, oh God. Lord, we just ask God that you just look down on all of the constituents in this meeting, from the mayor all the way down to the lowest person on the totem pole, oh God. Lord, we just ask God that you just make your presence known, oh God. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Pastor. We will move on to public comments. Do we have any registered?
You have none registered?
Next, we'll go to appointments, proclamations, recognitions, nominations, and public hearings. And item A is a presentation from the Optimist Club, a plaque of appreciation to the city of Ottawa for 30 years of duck race support. And we're usually the ones handing out proclamations and plaques, so this is unusual. So please come on up and tell us about it. Here, I'll meet you.
Ready?
Where's?
Do one more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. You wanna, yeah? Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, and please
You're welcome.
tell us a little bit about the organization if you want, or.
All right, well, I'm Harry Peckham with the Franklin County Optimist Club. For 30 years, we've been doing a duck race in the, it's skunk run in the city park, where we dump several thousand rubber ducks into the creek and they float down from one side to the other. That's one of our main fundraisers for the 30 years. And we couldn't really do the duck race without the cooperation from the city. Your crews hang the banner for us on Main Street. Fire department makes sure that there's actually enough water in the skunk run to float the ducks. And police department, I think, helps us out from time to time, so we couldn't really do it without it. We appreciate it. So that's why we're presenting you with this plaque for helping us for the 30 years of doing the duck race. We were real disappointed we couldn't actually do a duck race this year due to the weather, but maybe next year. So, in addition, one of our projects that we do as an Optimist Club is our junior golf program. We just finished that last month in June. We do offer instruction to the elementary kids who want to learn how to play golf out here at the Ottawa Golf Course. And we want to say that we really appreciate the cooperation from your staff out there this year. You got a bunch of great people out there. I'm not a golfer, but what I see driving by, it looks like it's a lot better. And it wasn't, definitely more people running around playing golf, it looks like. So I think it's going well. Hope you guys think it's going well. We appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I had the honor of judging, I think it was the best boat maybe last year, at the duck race, and that was a lot of fun. There was quite a few good little builders, and we got to watch them race down Skunk Run as well, so that was really entertaining, so thank you as well for putting those events on. We will move on to the consent agenda, which includes minutes from the June 23rd meeting, minutes from the June 25th meeting, and minutes from the May 30th, 2025 Ottawa Memorial Auditorium Advisory Board meeting, and the agenda approval. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to give commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Seeing none, we will move on to unfinished business. We have item 10A, the budget recap. We will receive and file an update on special revenue funds from the June 18th and June 25th budget presentations and further discuss additional information provided regarding community partner funding applications. We have Director Landis here presenting.
Thank you. So over the last 2 meetings, we've discussed some of our special revenue funds at each one of the meetings. And really related to the last review session. There was some additional questions that came up that we said we would bring back information on. And particularly, even if we mentioned that we would bring it back at a later date, we wanted to make sure we included it in our budget recap, mostly for documentation reasons, but also for the public that may just be joining in the middle of the entire budget process. So just a couple of follow-up items related to the airport opioid fund, and then continued discussion or additional information was provided in this packet for the community partner funding. Again, just this is more of a receive and file and further discussion if you wish, so that gives direction to staff on how to proceed with putting together the budget. In the airport fund specifically, you had asked about the leased ground for ag use at the airport and what those lease terms were. And so there is 87.6 acres of ground that's suitable for farming and haying, which is leased by 2 different individual agreements. And the average rent per acre is $100 per acre. And in the opioid fund, we had asked about the guidelines specifically to that. There's a lot of guidelines. I wanted to collect that, pull it all together, send it out to you in a future packet, and then work with Chief Weingartner to put together a recommendation on how we might be able to spend some of those funds, or whether we decide to reserve them for a much larger purchase at some future date. In the related to the community partner funding applications, you had asked a couple of specific questions, and I put those related answers into the packet material, but then also provided a look at a couple of different funding scenarios for you. The first question was about the Ottawa Main Street balance sheet, and we did send out to you the, you know what, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and cover this, but I skipped a slide, apologize for that. We did send out their statement of financial position, and in their operating account at the May 31st, at the end of May was $81,522. That position statement does actually show a much higher balance, but they do have IWW loans, and some of those balances are, and those receipts back from those loans are reflected in there as well. So just related to operations, it's the balance that was reflected here.
No, I'm not sure I follow you there. So part of the IWW loans is in the 81,000.
No, it's reflected separately.
There's a $45,000 balance on business checking. That's separate. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't put up a slide, but what was it? Yes, the 81,000 is the operating account
Okay.
at the end of May. I don't
Right.
believe we've seen the June statement
And
yet.
and the IWW loans are me and the loan business checking.
Yes, and those are separate, and they're a dedicated program, and so they don't use those funds for their operations. Okay, and then the other item was, there was a request for an information on how the fireworks funding would be used and increase for 2026. And I know we had some general conversation about what those additional funds will be used for, but more specifically, we received some information from our staff that works with that program, and then also from the chamber. So the additional cost is largely to go towards the purchase of the 8-inch mortars, and then the remain, and those are reusable every year going forward, and that's about approximately half the cost. And then the remainder of that is the shells for those mortars and the technology and the licensing that goes along with it. Did I represent that fairly?
I think it's fair.
Okay. And so do you have other questions about fireworks? Or Ryland's here and can answer any questions about that request.
Ryland, do we currently shoot any 8-inch
No.
with the current shows we've been putting on?
No, we do not.
Okay. Do they go to 6, 4?
I believe 6 is where we're at, where we're based. And I think part of that was at one point, and don't quote me on this, I think at one point we did have 8s. We don't have any 8-inch tubes at the moment, but we're in the process of trying to be able to get those built for next year in hopes to be able to shoot off some 8s, which bigger rooms.
So, yeah.
Do they make it 10 or 12 inch?
Not gotta add.
We'll just get you some dynamite now.
Yeah.
There we go.
I guess I will mention one more thing. I know one of the conversations that was had last week was what happens if funding doesn't get fully approved for the fireworks. In the end, this committee will not purchase more fireworks than what we can afford, if that makes sense. So basically less funding from the city and or other community partners, whether that's private businesses or Franklin County government, would just result in less fireworks being purchased, so a shorter show essentially. So in the end, more money allows us to be able to do more, less money allows us to do less. So that would be up to your discretion on how to be able to proceed, but that gives an explanation on where the funds go and what happens if the full request is not funded.
Is there additional licensing that goes to kind of a jump up to 8-inch?
Not of my knowledge.
Okay,
And there's some safety and security differences in regards to like proximity to where the shooting location is. And that will be worked through the fire department, police department, but no, I don't believe there's, I don't think
Okay.
but I don't think that's it.
The backup looks like. So the other question that you had posed was for the chamber and there's a specific request and just determining what kind of impact there would be if you were to award fewer funds than what they had requested. The amount of the request was $10,000. And so if you'd like to jump in at any point when I'm explaining this, we had a fairly lengthy conversation about how those funds would be used. And so I've just put up here the brief points, but the three initiatives that were and the three measurable outcomes that he had listed in the application were the support for the community liaison position, which really further integrates Ottawa University and the Neosho County Community College students into the community and the workforce. And we estimated that was, potentially part at 50% of the total request, even though even the $10,000 request doesn't go to fully support or fund that position. The other two initiatives are community engagement, and that is intended for the additional signage and marketing, advertising for 4 of the community events: Ladies Night Out, Treasures in Ottawa, the concert series, and the Mayor's Tree Lighting. And then the community guides, while they're currently being produced, they're more distributed locally at this point, and additional funding would help them to distribute those to other hubs around the state, drawing people to Ottawa that wouldn't normally see those community guides. And I think a couple of examples was just Johnson County or Hayes, just to draw them in from other areas. Again, Riley can help to answer any questions you have about those initiatives or how that funding or reduction in that funding might impact what he's trying to accomplish this next year.
Carolyn, tell me a little bit more about the liaison, like how you plan on using that person. I mean, I know it's mentioned OU and Neosho, but
Yeah,
tell me a little bit more.
You bet. And so actually that community liaison position isn't a brand new concept. So actually that was the path that I took to be able to get the position I'm in now. So whenever I would have started working at the chamber as an intern when I was an undergrad, the position was created between Ottawa University and the chamber to allow an individual to work towards further education on a master's degree, while also being able to work at the chamber to be able to accomplish goals that correlate with university's goals, but also the community's goals, which is, like I said, that further integration. And so, unfortunately, during my time in that position, the pandemic began, and a lot of the initiatives that we had planned to be able to make progress on some of those challenges didn't really see the light of day, because instead of trying to be able to celebrate and come together, we were forcing each other to be able to stay apart. But in the end, I still did see that those 2 years through. And then I guess the rest is history. Now I'm in this position now. But so this position will hopefully be able to do a piece of that, which is, again, integrate students, staff, faculty at the 2 different colleges in our community to be able to hopefully find an interest, find a purpose, and hopefully be engaged to the point where once they finish school, or if they're currently working at the university, they're further engaged in our community. I think there's a significant amount of benefit from a workforce development side to be able to capture that talent, but then also from a quality of life standpoint, to have more engaged individuals will hopefully benefit our community as a whole. So along with other chamber-related duties, that would be a piece, really, that GA, the graduate assistant position through the university would be to be able to encompass that. And you nailed it, Melanie, by saying, even if we were to receive that $10,000, that is just a third of what we're having to pay this position. We're able to, in total, that position's a little over $30,000, and that's actually with the help of Ottawa University basically giving us in-kind gifts to be able to make that happen. If they weren't able to partner with us in that way, it would cost much more than that and probably not actually feasible for our organization to do. So by saying, say 50% of that $10,000 ask goes towards that. Again, this is a position that hopefully will be around for 2 years. We are budgeting for that, but this would help be able to accomplish that goal. And I would also just mention, it seems like through conversation at commission meetings and also through commissioners here, that does seem to be an ongoing challenge that the city has recognized, that we have this fantastic resource that is Auto University. How do we be able to better engage them? And hopefully this position can do exactly that.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you still have something?
I guess I like to hear more about the community guides, because I'm wondering the value of a community guide in the years of being able to Google.
Oh, that's a great point. Yep. And that's a really good point. So I would mention that these community guides that are made, we currently have a online option as well. So there's a digital flip book that can be used. And so you're right. People that are interested in our community don't necessarily have to stop at a tourism location to be able to gather that information. With that being said, those tourism locations do exist and people are going to them. Yes, we are moving in a direction where my generation probably isn't going to stop at one of those locations and pick up a physical guide. But I think there's a large part of the population that still do utilize those resources. And having those guides there could be a possibility to be able to attract individuals, whether it's for a short time to be able to visit or a long time in regards to relocation.
I also wonder about if this funding request may not be more appropriate for, it appears as though it's some transient guest stuff. And not sure that I have heartache about thinking about this. It says unfunded, but this is a new request. This is not an old request. This isn't, you weren't funded before. You weren't part of the budget before. Haven't been part of the budget the entire time I've been on the city commission. So tell me about why your request would be here and not be something that you would do if it's money that would be tourism related, which it appears as though it is, why it would not be something you would consider there.
And you're asking to come to the city for tourism dollars, or are you insinuating another group to be able to request tourism funds from?
No, it appears as though the information that you're giving here, some of this is marketing and tourism related.
Yes,
and we have a new transient guest tax that is actually going to be derived just from the city.
You bet. Yep. And I'm
And
aware
why
of that.
wouldn't you just think about requesting that in lieu of asking for general fund dollars?
That's a good question. I guess you might inform me. I don't know what that process looks like in regards to being able to request those funds. And to be honest, my interpretation was that some of those transient guest tax funds could be going through this process. So if there is a better way or more appropriate way to be able to request those moving forward, I'm happy to be able to do that. And I think that was a misinterpretation that this would be the outlet to be able to request those. But I think you're spot on in saying that these, both of those requests, the community guides and the events, are 100% tourism related. And I would think would fall under that TGT tax program. I would also mention that we have engaged, it would have been in 2024, we engaged the county in regards to pursuing this guide partnership, and that funding was not approved at that point. I haven't revisited that with them, so this year I did not submit that application. But so it's not like we haven't pursued that option. So I guess again, I'd be very interested in seeing what that would look like in regards to how the city, how you, the commission, chooses to be able to distribute those funds once collected. But I just was unaware that there was another outlet to be able to make that happen.
We're really, and Rylan, it's not that you've missed out on anything, it's just that we're really new into that process.
You bet.
It's
Yeah,
just-
that's my understanding as
I mean,
well.
it's a new avenue.
You bet. You bet.
So
What is, Melanie, if I could ask you, do you see, because I can see how these items would relate to the Economic Development Fund goals or functions, do you see, I mean, does that seem like an appropriate use of those dollars, kind of similar goals as to what that fund would be used for?
In my opinion, I think that's an option. I did present an option C on the page in case you were interested in finding a way to fund that gap for this year through the Economic Development Fund. Again, yes, it could applied to transient guest tax, we don't have that process
Mhm,
rolled out
yeah.
yet. So we haven't, but we will hopefully be doing that relatively soon, likely for the top of the 2026 year. So how that process might look, though, we haven't rolled it out to anyone, so it wasn't actually available at the time of application.
Sure. So if, if it, like, I actually like option C, but if people were to also like that option, I was just making sure that would be an appropriate use of those funds, that it would go along with that until there was a TGT process developed for the next year, so, but it sounds like that would be appropriate use, so.
Well, and certainly a discussion that could be had next year, if Ryland was to come back and ask for something similar to that, maybe we could fund it out of the general fund, like, a portion of it, and then have those TGT dollars that we'd have that fund to fund, whatever remaining balance there may be. But at this point, we don't have any, so we can't give it away.
I want to be really careful about calling it unfunded, because it's not unfunded. It is a request for funding. It's not something that we have said we're not going to fund. Everybody I have lots of unfunded things at my home I'd like to do. I have lots of lots of businesses I'm guessing the people who own businesses in this room have unfunded things they'd like to do with their businesses too, if we want to call it unfunded. It's not unfunded. It's just not, we haven't chosen to give money to those in the past. I mean, they're requests. And
That's what I'm saying.
I want to be really careful about
Yeah.
not calling them unfunded, because they're not unfunded.
Are you talking about the way I labeled the column and the options?
Well, no, I've just heard a couple of times, I'm like, if it's unfunded, it's like, well, it's a request. It's not unfunding. It's just, it's not, we're saying, no, we've given it to you in the past and we're gonna take that back. No, these line items are brand new requests. And anybody can make a request to the city for funding, correct? Anybody.
Yes.
So, I think we've got to be really, really, really careful about how we spend, taxpayer dollars on requests.
So I'm sitting there listening to you, right? I'm thinking with the relationship with OU and Ocean County, very important. Back around this table, the way OU graduates here, are you? Zach, I know you are. And so I'm just thinking how many times we've talked about how these people graduate and they leave town. Wouldn't it be great if we could keep that, I said, brain drain they talk about, leaving our community, leaving our state to go elsewhere. And if we can develop a relationship with OU better and the Ocean County, to exclude them, is a good thing, I would think, for all of us to be able to benefit from. So I'm more inclined to go with the 10,000 myself on your request for that reason. And I like your, Melanie, take that out of the economic development. We've got plenty of money in there, don't we? Can you say we had 75 or how much that?
Yeah, I do have a slide to show you kind of what those options represent as far as the impact to balances, on each of the funds. But yeah, there's just over $500,000 in that fund right now.
Was off a little bit.
In our
The good
favor,
way.
yeah.
Good
it's a
way,
good
yeah.
way.
Ryland, on the community guys, I will just say, I appreciate them. I always try when someone moves to town who's new at a real estate closing to give them a guide. Do you see, I guess, what avenue trying to get outside of town? Do you have pathways, I guess, that you're trying to hit? Is it through tourism? Are you calling places being like, hey, at a travel stop Gloves, can I throw this in? Or is there a tool that you're using that would help kind of disseminate those, or how does that look?
No, that's a really good point. I think there's a lot of options. We work with a publishing company to be able to make those guides in the first place. I have a strong feeling they have some really good ideas, but then also through community partners. I currently serve on the Chamber of Commerce Executives of Kansas, and I have a strong feeling there'll be some resources there through conversation on where best to be able to place those. It's important to note that that actually won't be able to get published until the end of this calendar year. So we definitely have some time still in regards to this year, and then we make one every single year. So it's not like we're in a big rush to be able to figure out those exact locations, but I think both of those are fantastic points. Anywhere that people are moving around with the idea they might want to find more information about where they should go. I'm currently planning a trip with some family to be able to go east a little bit, and that Chamber of Commerce and tourism locations, those are exactly where I'm looking at. I'm looking through those guides to find what's the best thing to do in town, where's that hidden gem, and hopefully that guide can show that to individuals about Ottawa and Franklin County.
I also think they'd be kind of cool to, when we go to, you know, like our annual conference or something, to be able to have a few on hand, just in case you wanted to show somebody something, you know, in paper form. And I know you can, you know, shoot them a link or anything, but I prefer guides like that, or brochures. So I was thinking it would be awesome to be able to hand that out, or leave a couple in the break room at work or something like that, so.
I think I would mention one more thing is we're actually coming up to the end of our current contract with that publishing company. And so this conversation I thought was very timely in the fact that if we knew that there was going to be increased funding to be able to pursue some different avenues with that company, we would be able to do that. So currently we print 1,000 of those guides, and we give just about that many out currently here in Ottawa. So obviously there had to be an increased output, and I would assume there's probably going to be, I mean, obviously we're trying to negotiate the best deal, but there will most likely be a cost for that depending on how many we're trying to distribute. So, not that if it wasn't funded this time around, we couldn't be able to have that conversation, but in regards to that negotiation conversation, that will take place with the publishing company by the end of this year.
And is it part of the liaison's job that they have to stay here with you? And they're just like you did, they have to stay in the community for
I don't
good?
believe that's in the contract, but it is a 2-year position because the master's program is a 2-year track. And so honestly, 2 years guaranteed is a lot better than a lot of organizations probably have. Because most of them, you can cancel that employment contract immediately.
Yeah.
So the fact that we know we'll have her for a bit. And if you haven't had a chance to meet her, I probably should bring her to your commission meeting. She's pretty stellar. I'm really impressed with her. We've only been had her for a month, but I think she's going to have a fantastic impact on her community while she's at OU, but then moving forward as well.
Is it, yeah,
Jeja.
okay, yeah, I don't speak Japanese, but I got a chance to visit with her here a couple of weeks ago. I'm really impressed with her. I think she's gonna be a great asset for your group and hopefully for the future, maybe stay here, so good.
Any other questions for Ryland? How would we like to proceed with this particular, or with these options? Did we cover?
I was gonna say,
We didn't really, do you want me to just give you a brief rundown of
Yeah,
what I
that'd be
provided
great.
here, just
Yeah.
so. The blue column is, I called it option A, it can be labeled whatever you wanna call it, but this would be fully funding. All of the requests that came to you, and I wanted to include that simply because in order to do that, it would require an additional $31,000 being transferred into the community service fund. And that's 25% from water, wastewater, electric, and the general fund. And so about $77.50 for each one of those funds. Option B, I have listed each one of those, each one of the funding applications that you wanted to further discuss last week. So I didn't include those that we had already somewhat come to consensus on at our last meeting, and those are in the white section under the community partner request, and those that are highlighted on this screen, it's kind of orange. If it's on a printed piece of paper, it's gray. But I listed those and numbered them and tried to add a note up at the top so that you could see. But this basically would include a portion that you had discussed at the last meeting, and then shows you what would remain as maybe what was still on the table after your last discussion. So in the case of Ottawa fireworks, we had talked about maybe a part of that could come from economic development or somewhere else, and continue funding them at the same level, so that in future years, it wasn't just an automatic renewal of the funding application at the higher level, but that have to come back and be able to explain why they needed more funding in future years. So I proposed it that way, and left the remainder of those agencies or those funding requests as unallocated. In option C, I gave a little bit different option for both Ottawa Main Street and the chamber, in addition to the fireworks that was already presented in option B, and paired those remaining unallocated amounts under economic development, in case that's something you were interested in. At the bottom, I just showed you what the impact would be on each one of those funds. I know it's a lot of numbers. I really didn't want it to be confusing, but in a more summarized fashion, this is those three options just based on just those few applications that we hadn't really came to a consensus on, I guess.
Melanie, go ahead.
Can you offer some insight into, for the public on where economic development fund is derived from?
Yes, it comes largely from applications for economic development incentives. There is there's origination fees that come in there from IRBs, and there's, I believe, some tower property that's leased that those revenues come in. So they're not a constant stream of funding, if you will. Never really a guaranteed amount is coming in every year.
Did you show a pilot in there?
There's not. We're done with all the pilots that are in there currently. Yeah, that we had. I think that ended maybe last year, 2 years ago, basically. Yeah, so while there is a balance in there right now, as we, begin to dwindle that down, there really isn't a guaranteed renewal of those funds in there.
And do you see, Melanie, on kind of going forward, do you see this kind of presenting this where funding may be split for some of these community partners kind of annually on a, multiple fund basis, kind of like this, and then like next year we kind of present and be like, here's what we did last year with multiple funds?
Yeah, we've never done that
Yeah.
before, but just based on the conversation that you had last week, I thought that it might be worth throwing it out there as an option. If you were interested in pursuing, funding 100% of each one of those applications that you had not quite yet determined where or how it could be funded. This, of course, because transient guest tax wasn't in, we don't have a process rolled out. I use this as the other option for this year's application. If we follow suit with what the county does for procedurally for applying for TGT funds, you don't apply until the year that it would be funded. So our application process for community partners is really happening 6 months before that funding is going to happen. But for TGT funds, at least on the county side, you're applying for in the year that it's actually available. So as far as planning ahead purposes go, it's a little more difficult. So a lot of those applications I would envision are probably more specific to upcoming events or specific in nature, as opposed to broad funding for programming or ongoing programming, I guess, if that makes sense. Of course, again, we have not outlined exactly what that's gonna look like with you all, so. Probably do it any way we want to going forward.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I think, Melanie, to your point here, the option C is, I know what I would kind of lean towards looking at those economic development, those funds that you almost call tourism, you can call, really underneath that economic development umbrella, really where those amounts that you kind of keyed in on are really those things, the fireworks, potentially this liaison for the community, and then the guides and some of the things that the chamber will be doing. And then Sarah with Main Street has taken on a lot since the county, we no longer have a tourism director. That there's a lot of needs through the state. And I think Ryland and Paul both kind of fill some of those roles, but there's a lot of opportunity there and a lot of time that goes into that kind of away from other people's jobs, since that's now an opening. So I would be in favor of for my opinion, the option C, with keeping that 13 coming from the Economic Development Fund, with the remainder coming from the Community Service Fund.
That's the option I'm in favor of as well. And I would just say, depending on how we envision the TGT funds being used in the future, knowing that some of those may be, if they were to be requested and granted again, they would maybe come up something like that rather than this, depending on the process. But I like option C.
So this is strictly for 26 budget, correct?
Yes.
So we're not, so after, when they come to us for the 27, they're gonna be back down to 44.5 for Main Street, back down to 4 for the fireworks, and back down to 5 for the chamber.
So when you say back down to.
If they were to request that initial, cause that's, fireworks has been 4 for a couple years now. So I would expect next year when Ryland comes to us, he says, I want 4,000. I mean, I would hesitate for Ryland to come to us and say, I need 9,500 because you gave me 9,500 last year.
For 2027.
Yes, yes.
So the way we present it to you is we show you what they were awarded the previous year, and then we show you what they've applied for the upcoming year. And then it's up to you through discussion to determine whether you wanna hold them at some certain level or increase that.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit of option A and a little bit of option C. I fully want to fund Main Street Association. I don't think that should be a conversation we have anymore about that 47. So that's the option A. Option C for me would be, okay, fine, we can give them the additional funds for fireworks and the chamber. But that's just for the 26 budget. That's my opinion. If Ryland feels he wants to, request some more on 27, whether it's for fireworks or chamber, then, I guess coming in next year, you would know that we would start that initial funded amount and then maybe work our way up if need be.
And I think to your point, none of this is ever an ongoing fulfillment. So
Sure,
through
sure.
this application process, you are reapplying every year, regardless of where the funding comes from. It's not an ongoing.
And I understand that. I guess my like Main Street, we funded for 42,000 last year. So that's kind of their baseline. So that's what I guess what I'm saying is Ryland's baseline next year would be the lower amounts, not the higher amounts, because that's not really where, how I feel we should be funding.
Sure. And also, thank you for pointing this out. I put in option B and C just as generically showing you
Where.
by applicant where it could be funded from. In no way was I intending for you to have to choose one or the other. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that, just to give you some options on how each one of them could be funded between the different sources. So certainly not trying to make you lean one way or the other. And so, yeah, balance out whatever you would like to do on each one of them, then we'll create that going, into the budget process.
And Melanie, you'd mentioned kind of, with TGT and not knowing how it's allocated, and Commissioner Kaler touched on that. Is there a plan to kind of this fall before the end of the year, kind of go through what we think that procurement process looks like to request from that, or how that kind of?
Yes, that's
Looks-
our intent.
Okay.
We have a draft process so far, and we just have not been able to bring it to.
Okay.
So in our last conversation, those that are in the white, you had discussed, kind of by consensus that you would be in favor of, fully funding the request for Prairie Paws, Veterans Day, City Band, FCDC, the Hope House request, and the Elizabeth Layton Center. And then left on the table was still Ottawa Main Street, Fireworks, Chamber of Commerce, and then Coalition to End Homelessness and Child Advocacy Center were both, during our conversations, were not in favor of funding at that time. For those that are left, or at least numbered there 1 through 5, do you have some input or even some consensus on how we should approach bringing back the budget to you as we're nearing the end of the budget process with the next 2 meetings? I'd like to be able to bring it back to you in the way that you like to see it.
Do you want us to go line, group?
Yeah, we can go by
Discuss
line.
one
So
by one
Ottawa
instead
Main
of those
Street,
different, yeah.
essentially it would be either funding at 44,500, or do we want to increase it to the 47,000 requested?
That's what I'm trying to decide too. I know 81,000, that's a lot of cash, and that's a good thing. I don't want to penalize you for you've done a great job, Sarah, raising money to Piccadilly and all these different events. Is some of that 81,000 already spoken for something, or is that some grant money that's come in that's gonna be going out, or some project that's?
None of that. It's for events that we have coming up in salary, just daily operations at this point.
And some of that's dues money coming in every month.
Yes, some of that is because our membership starts in May
Okay,
1st, and this is our first year of having automatic renewals. And
okay,
we had about 12,000 automatically renewed,
okay. So
actually
you're,
more like 4,000.
so just with May being over, you're.
So May and Piccadilly both hit at the same time.
Timing. So you've got to live on that the rest of the year.
Now, I will say you can't reflect if you see it the next month, because that's gonna have grant work in it.
Okay, that's gonna be higher, but that's got for a specific purpose, and so. I was just wondering with that money in there, why you would need the 2,500. I was thinking 2,500 sounds good for an increase, and I'm not necessarily want to increase every year. Pretty soon, I think you'd be, you know, able to be autonomous, with just your dues, but maybe that's not necessarily true. And then Piccadilly, I know is a big thing, so congratulations on that. That's a good idea you got there. I know, Chamber, you've got the trips and some things of the auctions, but I'm not sure how much money that brings in, but still, I still like the idea of what you presented here with regard to the liaison work, and that's important. I think we need to have more, and we've talked about that in time a lot, and this might be one way to fund that and really get it going. But you're talking about Main Street right now, aren't
Yep,
you?
for Main Street, yep, yep.
I'm sorry.
I know personally I'm in favor of funding at the 47,000, whether that looks like option C with some coming out of Economic Development Fund for those functions, for kind of more of the tourism, functions that we see. I'm fine with that.
And I'm reminded too that successful Main Street brings in sales tax dollars to City Hall, so don't forget that part.
But I'm not diminishing at all what Ottawa Ministry is doing, because I think they're doing a great job. I still would want to be conservative, and I'm for the 44.5. And, I'm not, we're gonna have TGT dollars. We can always look at other options, but, it's a large increase in 2 years. And I agree that they probably should have had an incremental increase as we had gone on, or as we've gone on, but as a citizen, I have a hard day giving that much of an increase in 1 year.
Does everyone else feel?
I'm on, either option A, the fully funding, or the breaking it apart if we want to pull part of it from economic development. For me, I would kind of defer kind of to Melanie, if you think fund wise, if you think that's an
It's
option.
not my determination for the level of funding.
I have no problem with it staying just in the community service, just to keep it clean, kind of the option A. And then if economic development TGT things in the future are kind of that ad hoc ask, it does keep it, kind of to Commissioner Crowley's point, a little cleaner next year. That way they can see a total amount without kind of knowing where everything kind of came from.
Commissioner Crowley?
Like I said, I'm in favor for fully funding them, so I don't care if it comes from option A or option C.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yeah, I'm still trying to, I guess, on Main Street, we're still talking about, right?
Mhm.
I'm just thinking that 44.5 sounds good to me for the total. That was the proposal, I guess, for option C. I think I'd go for that.
I think we had 3 at the fully funded and 2 at the 44,000, so that helps the decision.
Okay.
We can move on to fireworks, requesting 9,500. I'm fine with splitting it apart, so that way it looks like, the funding stays flat at 4,000 out of the community service fund, and then the 5,500 out of the Economic Development Fund as the one-time 250th anniversary donation.
On that, Ryland, I didn't get a chance to ask, is there a portion of this? We all know everything, the cost of everything's going up. It was 4,000 last year. To kind of stay level at that, would your request kind of be that 4,000, and then the 5,000 is kind of viewed as that semi-quincentennial, or would you be looking for 45, 45, 5, 4, kind of from you guys? What would you see that break apart look like?
Again, in the end, we own the equipment other than those 8-inch mortar tubes. So the amount of funding that's given just depends on how much fireworks are purchased. So I guess this was the request that was made, but if you wanted to do one time, if you wanted a bigger show every year, then obviously it needs the funds to be able to do that. So I guess to answer your question, it just depends on how many fireworks you want to blow up on the 4th of July issue. Is that?
Yeah,
fair?
no, that works. Yeah, I think. So kind of, with that, I think my take would be that 4,000 level for this community service, and then that 5,500 coming from Eco Devo to to really bring something big for next summer, because I think we have a great opportunity between the two events going on, so.
Other thoughts on that?
I agree with Commissioner Clayton.
Any other opinions?
I'm fine with wherever we choose to take it out of. I think it's more transparent just to take it out on option A.
See you.
Okay, so we're good at funding fireworks to the requested amount. Chamber of Commerce, requested 10,000. New request.
I'm good with that. I wasn't the best before I came in here, but Ryan did a good job in his presentation. I'm good with 10,000 as a good number.
I agree as well. I'm not too particular as to where it comes out of, which way it's funded, but I think the community liaison would be really good, and maybe we could get another Ryland or another young person staying here, so and working in our community. So I like that request.
What are some things before that we spent, some of our economic development funds on?
You know, we have not until this year when we brought the zip trip request to you for that specific marketing request, but other than that, I cannot recall any of those other requests coming from anywhere other than the community partner fund.
So we're kind of using this as a bridge to TGT.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's not like the fund balance is low. And we're drying it all up. I mean, and these are good, good ideas that we would spend it on.
And there's a possibility that when we go back and rework the numbers that in the community service fund, that it wouldn't lower the fund balance so far that you would have to even use the economic
Sure.
development fund, just by virtue of some of the ones that we've discussed so far, but so we may be able to just bring it back and say they would just all come out of one place and, see if you're in favor of that too, but.
And I like the economic development fund funding some of it, and the reason being is because we always talk about not putting another commission, in the same boat. Funding from the same way that we have already, set the precedent. At least that way it kind of goes back, like I said, and then next year's commission can talk about however they want to fund those requests.
So we were in favor of the 10,000 for the chamber.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And then the Coalition to End Homelessness, had requested 7,000. I know at the last meeting, we had kind of talked about, funding 2,000 of that, but what are thoughts on?
I haven't changed my mind.
Yeah, same. I think that with this kind of discussion we had last week, I think still stands, and that's where I would stand.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that 2,000.
Same. And are we good with, just, denying the request for this year for the, Child Advocacy Center? Is that the consensus?
And you, Melanie, on these, obviously can watch these are public. When someone applies, whatever group does not get the funds that they requested, is there what's the process for that? Do we send back to them? Do we kind of explain? Do we let them know? Do we, what rationale, I guess, is given when we talk back to them to let them know that it was denied? Or do we just tell them, hey, watch the meeting, you can watch the discussion?
Well, we've had so many discussions on it, it might be
Yeah.
difficult to. We have not actually talked about what that message might be for going back, on this item. I believe that what I heard was in both of those situations was that you would like to see that both of those being a little more further developed in their, the advocacy center, certainly making sure that they have their 501c3 and their bylaws and really being established and really being ready to move ahead before funding a request. And then on the Coalition to End Homelessness, the other part of a very similar conversation, but you certainly were in favor of the services part of that request that was assisting with the overnight stays, the care for the homeless during those times when it's extremely cold or whatever. Is that, am I in the right path?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if we just sent back an email that was like denied, like, or like
Big
what
red
that
letter.
process
But it
was. To kind of contact them to say, hey, here's.
Contact and follow up.
Okay.
Frankly, Laura's initiated that and we can follow deeper, she'll tell you they're following it
Something.
real time.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm one of those 5 decision makers, and I'd tell any one of those, community partners that if they'd like to reach out to me personally, I'd like to have a conversation with them and tell them why I made my decision, so.
Good idea. By the way, I'm pleased that we're spending $49 more for El Paso than we are for going fireworks, but that's just.
All right, thank you for the multiple conversations that we've had. I know that we stretched this out across multiple meetings, but I really feel like we were able to, this was probably more applications than we've had in the past. And I appreciate you spending the time on it.
Thank you for all the work you did on that, especially those kind of showing us options. I
Sure,
appreciate
you're
that.
welcome. Thank you.
We will move on to new business. We'll start with item 11A. Dare Camp update. We have a presentation from Chief Weingartner on the 2025 Dare Camp program. Are you asking for money?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tell you how we fund this stuff without money. So, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Just want to talk about a quick update as we lead into for our departments and many other of the departments that help support us, our final stages of planning, and just give you an idea. So, the 2025 Dare Camp is scheduled at Prairie Star Ranch. That's just outside of Williamsburg, Kansas, and we start Thursday, July 31st through Saturday, August 2nd. We've been using those dates Thursday through Saturday for a couple of years. We had to change it from what was our historical date because of another camp that the camp organization Prairie Star Ranch has in there. And we did a couple of years to see how those dates would work out, and actually it's worked out pretty good for us. So I do think the change has been a positive experience for our planning and for all of our staff to do. And I don't think it's diminished any of the fun that the kids get to have at the camp. No action needed from you for this, so just informational only. So this is our 38th annual Dare Camp. It's an annual event currently hosted at Prairie Star Ranch, and we have on average about 100 students who've completed the 5th grade in all elementary schools located throughout Franklin County. Historically, this has been a camp for graduates of the Ottawa schools, both USD 290 and Sacred Heart. But a couple years ago, we expanded it to the other elementary schools, and now all students do that every year. And got some photographs of some of the past fun experience that the kids have, and obviously, as you can tell from their dirty, wet, and cold faces, even though it's about 95 degrees out there that day, it's a really good time. The camp is a component of our community outreach programs and services division. It includes our DARE instructors, our school resource officers, and aligns with our department's strategic goals of safety and education and community engagement. Registration is currently open and available on our website, although many of the applications go out to the students' email addresses prior to the end of the school. So we have already, as when this was submitted, we had 85. Within the last week, we've got a handful more coming in, and that will be the case all the way up through and including sometimes the day of camp. And we'll take them if we can get them. We have plenty of space and plenty of volunteers to do that. And all that information and registration is available on the police section of our website. Look for our programs tab, and there'll be a link for the registration page right there. We couldn't do it without our community partners. So the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, the Wellsville Police Department, Franklin County EMS help us ensure a safe, secure, positive experience for our youth. And we do that by building trust through the positive engagements that are a direct result from the DARE program, leading into camp, and now, here in a few weeks, what our next kind of step will be our teen academy, and then leading into adult stuff that we're gonna do. So this is really the beginning stages of what that relationship with the youth in our community, who we hope are adults and volunteers back, begins. There is no cost for anyone to attend Dare Camp. We don't charge a kid. They go there free. Some of these kids come from homes that might not be able to afford to send them to the type of camp we deliver, and we're really proud and pleased that we're able to do that. All of our employee salaries, the vehicles and equipment that we use, our public relation are part of our annual department budget, and we really monitor the costs and what that impact is on the resources, and one of our strategic pillars of stewardship of resources. The cost of camp is fully funded by the Ottawa Police Foundation. The Ottawa Police Foundation was started more than a decade ago with really the specific purpose to receive tax deductible donations to support DARE Camp. And the foundation has expanded into some other areas since then, but DARE Camp and the DARE programs are still its main focus and component. And we are very blessed and thankful to receive a disbursement from the Margaret Gibson Family Foundation Trust each year that helps us fundraise for DARE Camp. And then a lot of our community groups, in fact, one of the ones that was in here earlier, giving you a plaque, is gonna be out to cook us pancakes one morning, and it's one of the best breakfasts you get in here. So we do have a lot of community partnerships, a lot of community organizations bring their food, their volunteers, and help us provide the service that we do. And then, of course, all of our volunteers.
Now, your trivia night, that's also goes to the foundation.
Trivia night does go to the foundation as well. Yes, yep. Yes. And you are all invited at all times to come out and to visit the camp, to experience it. If you want to get on the air rifle range, we'll do that too. If you want to go down the water slide, bring your suit, we'll get you down that too, because that's some of the most fun we have out there. I say we have about 100 kids out there. It takes about 100 other staff members from us to do it. From our staff, from all of the other organizations, our nursing crew, our medical teams, our volunteers, and then we have several generation of kids that attended who are now volunteers. And we just love that kind of that multi-generational impact that the camp has. And it's something we hear about probably more than anything else, about the impact that it has on people long-term. And of course, anyone, if they would like to donate, can go to the Ottawa Police Department or to the Ottawa Police Foundation. We're always willing to accept your money. Those funds can be earmarked specifically for DARE Camp, and we will put them in that fund. Through some other donations that we've had from the Bose Hog Wild event over the past couple of years, I can report that we have sufficient funding in reserve for DARE Camp for many, many years, and it's not going to go away, and it won't be something that we have to impact the taxpayer with.
Do you know how many fifth graders there are in the county? I mean, I'm guessing around 300, or I don't know if there's 100 that typically come, that's mainly from this school district.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to
I
that.
didn't know, how are we advertising to the other school districts, since they're just brand new to this, right? Or last year they were.
No, they've been coming for, every year that I've been chief, so at least 6 years they've been coming out there. And, so all of the DARE instructors in the county kind of collaborate with each other throughout the year. And they start talking as soon as their DARE classes take place at Wellsville and West Franklin, Central Heights, and in the Ottawa School District, to make sure that at the end of their classes, all of those kids get the application and it's provided to them before they leave.
And it's just a day camp, they go home each night?
No way,
No.
they stay.
Yeah.
Okay, so transportation shouldn't be an issue if they come from Richmond, so.
Yeah. Yep. And if transportation was an issue, we'd go pick them up, bring them in. We brought them home before, we can pick them up if we need to, but we'll do that, yeah. You're welcome. And no action is needed on that. And if you have any questions, though, I'd welcome any other questions or.
Do you guys sell any swag, like DARE Camp swag?
We do not.
Cool.
Oh,
You have, if you do, you have to buy that from DARE. They're pretty
Oh.
particular about their logo
Yeah.
and their copyright,
Yeah.
so, yeah. You can go to the DARE website and buy it off there, but we don't sell
Okay,
it.
impressive. When you mentioned the impact, I still just remember the little cigar smoking thing with like the fake lungs on it. I don't know if they still do that, but I still remember what those little filters looked like inside with the cotton balls, smoking a cigarette.
Any other questions?
How you can
or
follow that
Chief
up.
Wayne?
Yeah, I don't know either. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 11B.
National Night Out.
This is an overview of the upcoming National Night Out event plans with Chief Wayne Gardner.
National Night Out is scheduled for Tuesday, August 5th. I say 5 PM to 7 PM, but those times are really dependent upon the neighborhoods that may register, or the schedule, and is kind of flexible as we go about that. No action is needed, and just ask that if any of you all, and I have received responses from some that they do plan to participate, just let us know so we can start plugging that information into our calendar or our schedule. So National Night Out is a community building campaign held the first Tuesday in August that promotes positive police-community relationships. The events enhance relationships between neighbors and police, fostering a sense of community with local law enforcement by working together to promote safety. And on this first Tuesday in August, many police departments across the country hold similar events. So there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of departments and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of community members that meet with their local law enforcement and emergency first responders. However, in Ottawa, we do things just slightly different. We involve our first response agencies from departments throughout Ottawa and Franklin County and drive emergency vehicles to their block parties in what we've called our parade of lights. Registration is open on our website. If you go to that same programs tab, you can click your link and register online. There is no fee or cost to register for National Night Out. And we've been doing a National Night Out since 2011 and is a component of the department's strategic alignment goals of quality of life and safety and education. And again, there's no cost, and the costs that do come from it are part of our normal operating budget. There is some overtime for personnel that have to work in the day and then work that evening. But those are all factored into our regular stuff, and we believe that's adhering to responsible stewardship of resources. No action is needed, and I've sent out a letter to probably about 30 different groups or organizations located within the city and the Franklin County, inviting them all to attend. So we do try to partner with our first response agencies, police, fire, EMS, emergency management, city government, city elected officials, Franklin County elected officials, to come and talk to their neighbors. And we like that because we go to their yards and have the conversation at their home. And I can tell you from hearing the ones where we've done at a one site location and people come to us, the feedback of you all going to them means a lot.
Yeah.
And again, the Tuesday, August 25th, registration on our website, and I hope you all can make it. And I know everyone wants to ride in a fire truck, so we're good with that. But we'll have our MREP out this year so you can ride in that. Hopefully we'll be able to compete with the big red shiny trucks just a little bit better this year. So. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have item 11C.
Authorization to proceed supervisory control and data acquisition system upgrades at the Ottawa Water Reclamation Facility.
This is to consider authorization to proceed with the SCADA system upgrade at the Water Reclamation Facility as adopted in the 2025 to 2029 capital improvement. And we have Director Sneven.
Good evening, Mayor,
Hello.
Commissioners. This is always exciting when I can come to you for
Yes.
permission to
Data.
proceed with a CIP project. It goes along with the planning part of what we do as an organization. And when we can proceed with something such as this, after whether it's a short planning period or a long planning period, I think it's good, shows progress, it shows we're moving forward. This item seeks commission authorization to proceed with a full upgrade of the SCADA system at the Water Reclamation Facility. And for those of you that may have not have heard through the water treatment study that we did, SCADA system is a supervisory control and data acquisition. Basically, it's the brains, the hub of the Water Reclamation Facility. This project is fully funded in the 25 to 29 capital improvement plan under project sewer 23001. Our current SCADA system was installed new to the plant in 2004. Since that time, there have been very little upgrades to the system, and it's basically just to be able to keep it running. There's no annual maintenance fees that are associated with the past system. We would like to start a maintenance agreement with our SCADA provider, which would basically eliminate the fact of having to do this every 20 years because it would be updated as we go. Obsolete products is the programmable logic controllers and legacy wonderware, HMI, the human machine interface, which basically that is our screens that show us what our pumps are doing, how much flow we're putting out into the system, back into the river, how much we're bringing in. The analysis portion of this, the scope includes the replacement of the two main PLC controls with new Rockwell compact logic systems. We'll also replace our SCADA workstations and panel displays, migrating from Wonderware to Aviva InTouch software and Win 911 alarm notification with mobile alerts. So it's gonna be a lot, anytime there's an alarm at any of the stations, they'll get it a lot quicker and be able to respond a lot quicker with this new upgrade. A new industrial grade, security appliance will restrict network access and meet IEC 62443 cybersecurity standards. Cybersecurity is a major talking point in the utility industry right now on the water and wastewater side. Unfortunately, we're there. We have to protect our system. We have Paul and his IT folks do a great job on our system here at City Hall and around. But when we have another provider providing us services, they have to protect as well. Finally, the interface itself will be redesigned with modern graphics, navigation, and alarm management to improve usability and system oversight for staff. The areas of our strategic alignment are stewardship resources, safety and education, economic development, and job creation, and quality of life and community engagement. And with all of those, we can focus back on the environment. The better we are able to monitor our system, check flows, check alarms in a timely manner, it's better for our community, it's better for the environment. We can easily detect when things go awry. It's just a lot better approach than a reactive approach. The total project cost is $249,180. This is a budgeted capital expense and will be paid out of the wastewater capital expense fund. No additional budget action is required, and the contract will be reviewed by the city attorney prior to execution. We recommend authorizing staff to move forward with the implementation. This project has been vetted, funded, and fully scoped with minimal interruption to plant operations. And I would like to add that the expert of the water reclamation facility is in the back of the room, Mr. Levi Harn. He's our superintendent. So if you have specific questions to the details of the current SCADA system, he would be more than happy to answer, or if I can answer any questions, I'm here for that.
Is this about the useful life? It's what, 21 years this one lasted? Do you know, is that typical? I mean, I guess we need to change our Wonderware once in a while.
What? Oh,
Oh, wow, I would just, wasn't ready.
I was there.
Was there a joke in there?
Right there.
yeah.
But 21 years, that.
Every 21 years?
Talking to my kids, I know that's a whole different story, but.
Some of the hardware itself has been replaced throughout the 21 years. It's not, all of what we have in place now is not 21 years old. We've had to have upgrades throughout the time. With this new system and a potential service contract with RE Pedrati, we will be getting those updates and they will be supplying us just like we do with our other SCADA companies and providers for our other plants that we have.
But if we didn't replace this, we could look at a total, collapse of the system.
Correct.
Pumps wouldn't work, whatever, that's usually we would have EP in the reactors, I'm sure.
Yes. And I would mention that in the CIP, it shows PLC and VFD upgrade. Prices have gone so high that we had to take the highest priority portion of that and separate it out. And as you see in your CIP for next year, the VFD portion of that. So we're splitting it up. We're trying to get the most cost effective and the most benefit out of the first portion of it, and then follow up next year with the CIP or with the VFDs.
You had mentioned an annual service plan, to keep software and everything kind of up to date. This basically includes 1 year, and then after that just rolls into contractual services kind of annually.
Correct. And that contractual amount is right around $11,000 for that yearly maintenance, and where they'll come in and troubleshoot and provide services.
Any other questions? How would we like to proceed?
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve item 11C on the agenda as listed.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? May I have roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton?
Yes.
And Mayor Allen?
And I vote yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will move on to item 11D.
Vacation of storm sewer easement for 415 East 15th Street.
This is to consider a recommendation from the planning commission to vacate the existing storm sewer easement at 415 East 15th as requested by Van Knight Properties. And we have planner Martin here.
All right, good evening, everybody. So as it was stated, this is a request for a vacation of 415 East 15th Street, and it is recommended that the Ottawa City Commission consider this ordinance accepting that vacation at that existing easement. So the subject property is currently a 0.59 acre parcel. It's zoned R1, which is low density residential, and it is located near the intersection of East 15th Street and South Oak over in eastern Ottawa. And the purpose of the request is to vacate the current easement, which very uniquely in the community actually encompasses the entirety of the residential property. The vacation of this easement would allow for the applicant to rededicate utility easements, which are shown in the survey a few slides from now, and allow for the parcel to be split and developed into residential uses. So here we have a GIS view of the property itself. As you can see, it's fairly large, about 120 feet by 213. And there are existing utilities that are along East 15th Street as well as along the western portion of the property. And then we do have the sewer line running kind of uniquely diagonally through the center. It's fairly deep into the property considering this is an over 200-foot lot, but it is a little different to see it crossing like that. But this is just kind of a general overview. And then this slide right here shows the proposed lot split. So apologies for kind of the finer detail. If you're able to zoom in on your screens, that might be helpful. But you can see this is the proposed split and easements that would be placed on this property if the vacation of the current easement is approved. So the easements would then encompass the diagonal crossing utilities that move across the property, as well as include easements along the western and northern portion, which are fairly traditional with residential lots in the city. So it brings fairly into conformance as far as what standards are typical for residential development, and then acknowledge the unique situation of the crossing utilities there now.
So there is a sewer in that easement now, right?
Yes.
There is. Is that unusual, what you said, for it cut across that? I mean, where was the house before? I assume it was closer.
It was closer to the front. You can kind of see the drive down there towards the beginning. It was,
Okay.
my understanding was it was fairly in
I
line.
did demolish
We
that
demolished
house.
that house
Years ago, I
I'm
remember
so
that.
glad that.
But that was in the backyard of the easement, I guess, right? I mean, if you-
Well, technically the house existed on that easement, so the whole property was an easement, so it really should not have been built at all. This is a little complicated, and in older parts of town, you will sometimes see utilities crisscrossing around in unique ways. It varies. A lot of it has to do with the historical context, the geography of the property. It's a little different. We're trying to kind of clean it up and at least bring it up to 2025 standards. But the unique situation itself is something that we completely missed, because it is very bizarre to have an entire property be an easement like this. So when Van Knight applied for the variance to allow for the creation of the lots through the split process, because he is requesting a lot depth that is deeper than typically allowed, that is when we actually came across the discovery that this property was an easement. So as you mentioned, there was a house that existed there in the past. But the elimination of that house did mean that the property could not be developed again because the house itself was non-conforming at that time. We typically obviously wouldn't allow construction on an easement. But that house being removed means that we now need to deal with the easement portion of it. So the request itself was reviewed by staff, and the requirements of vacation that are outlined in our zoning code or subdivision code in section 12-401, and we determined that those had been met. As far as financial considerations are concerned, there are no direct financial considerations or cost at this time. And City Attorney Finch has reviewed and approved the certificate as far as the legal considerations are concerned. And then for recommendations and actions, it is recommended that the City Commission deliberate approval of the proposed resolution and adopt the findings of the Planning Commission, approving the vacation by the following courses of action. Take action at today's July 2nd, 2025 regular meeting. approving the ordinance for the vacation of the easement at 415 East 15th Street, or recommend the item to be moved to a future city commission hearing for further discussion and consideration.
So in this, the ordinance is the vacation of the easement that currently is over the entirety of the parcel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it also redefining it with the new easement?
No, that should be a separate process, and I believe that was discussed
Okay.
within our department along with Attorney Finch. So that will be a separate process that's gonna somewhat work concurrently with the split process.
Okay, yeah, so this is just,
This is just for the
Basically
vacation.
just
The
getting
survey
done.
was included. That was the original split application, and that is to also reflect the easements that are to be proposed.
Okay.
So they do meet the standards of easement width, size. Again, the western and northern locations are typically the desired locations for those. And then we do acknowledge the existing utilities that run through there as well. We've also discussed with the developer about the placement of any new residential property there. And even with that new easement that runs along diagonally, there is still room to place a house and meet standard setbacks. So there's no real concern as far as potential residential development there.
Any other questions?
I'm good with voting for the vacation. What was it, 11D?
Yep.
Item on our agenda. Make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
One second.
Okay, any further discussion?
This house was, the house that was demolished at the end of 2018. For 7 years, and it's time.
I remember the big house.
It was a huge house.
And it's that vacant for a while.
Yeah, I mean, since 2018.
City,
Yeah.
city attorney was having issues getting a hold of the property owner and
They could have
conversation for a while.
It's time.
Vacation.
Yeah.
It's time.
Now I have roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton?
yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And Mayor Allen?
And I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we have item 11E.
Authorize a community survey to guide program development, service enhancement, and resource allocation related to the July 30th, 2026 expiry of a 1 cent local sales tax for general purpose and economic development.
City Manager Sokop will review a community survey process to be used as the guide program development, service enhancement, and resource allocation related to the July 30th, 2026 expiry of a 1 cent local sales tax for general purpose and economic development. We have City Manager Sokop.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and I want to thank, City Attorney Finch and Director Landis for their assistance on this. We just wanted to highlight, we discussed the, forthcoming expiry of our two, sales tax that were adopted about 10 years ago. It was a 1 cent sales tax that was approved by the voters, with, half of that going to general purpose and the other half for economic development. And that is set to expire on July 30th, 2026. What we're asking you to do here today is to authorize a survey that we can distribute community-wide, both hard copy and electronic, that we can then use to inform and guide us in program development, service enhancement, as well as the potential future resource allocation related to whether or not we renew this 1 cent sales tax that's set to expire and equates to a critical amount for our general fund operations as well as our economic development efforts across our community. You've seen this previously, but it generates for the general fund operations $2 million a year. That's equivalent to 13.87 mils with our current budget. So obviously that would mean that for both the economic development and our general fund operations, we're looking at over a $4 million revenue shortfall. And so in this last legislative session, a new law was adopted effective July 1st of 25 that limits ballot initiatives to November or March of 2026. So there's no longer the special purpose where you could do a special election or a mail-in ballot. That's no longer possible. And so with that, obviously, if we were to pursue the renewal of the 1 cent sales tax, that would be for general purpose and however, we would want to apportion that based on the survey feedback. We have, a November 4th, 2020, six ballot, sorry, not 25. And the proposed, 26 budgets also being, adopted and developed, concurrently to this. So what we're hoping to do is maintain just continuity and assume that that will be there at this point. And then, obviously, if that were to, a shortfall were to develop, then we would adjust it at that appropriate time.
So it would be on the ballot this November. That's right.
November of
No.
25, yes.
Of 25,
Yeah,
yes, thank you.
Okay.
So the purpose of the survey, again, is to help us, assess citizen satisfaction, but also, service enhancement and resource allocation by keeping a very, short, brief 14-question survey. It would be, online around July 7th, supported by a dedicated web page and a link from our ottawaks.gov banner that would direct folks to the page for the opportunity to complete that. We would also be mailing postcards to all registered voters as well as utility bills. So we would have inserts into our monthly utility bills. And also there would be a QR code that could also take you to the ability to download and complete the survey as well. And we would have return boxes distributed at City Hall, the library, OMA, and other sites around town. We would have weekly social media reminders and then also have fulfillment of survey requests that come in for paper copies. We would close the survey on August 6th, and those results would then be presented a week later at our August 13th regular commission meeting. Again, what we would be looking for in these brief 14-question anonymous survey will be the service quality rating and recent staff interactions, future investment preferences, impact of specific tax uses for the support, and also the likelihood of renewal and open comments.
With the survey closing August 6th and being presented August 13th roughly, what is the deadline for getting something on the November 4th ballot?
We would have to do that, by the first meeting in September 3rd.
Oh, okay.
And I assume there's a way that, I mean, one survey per household, per citizen, we know how that.
Well, obviously, this isn't a scientific survey, and so with it being anonymous, you would run or folks would have the opportunity to complete multiple surveys, but there's no other way to really do that.
Voter fraud, I don't want that. Okay, what about the questions, and do we have to be careful? We don't want to slant anyone's.
Correct.
Our opinion, we gotta be careful with that, right?
And we're using, the things that we went through in stats class in grad school, and we have, we're using statisticians to help us with that, so that it's, because we don't have a bias, we genuinely are asking, where do you want to see, what are your priorities? Because you're public servants, we're public servants, and so this is a true assessment of what are the priorities and what do folks want to see. And I would also ask, Attorney Finch and Director Landis to comment. If they so choose or send.
Happy to answer any question.
Any questions?
The total cost we expect to be less than 2,500 for the printing.
I would like to proceed.
I appreciate the screen right before this one that had it more just in kind of. Straight there. And I wonder if you want to send that screen to us, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
I mean, I know it's in here too, but I'm
But
just
no,
saying it's
I
easier. just
understand.
to- Some more
I understand.
readable version.
It's just 14 questions, but does it have any kind of explanation about why the survey's going out?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
it'll be in there also?
Mhm.
Okay.
And we'll also again have that page, and that's the same page that we would want for folks to be able as we do projects that would be affiliated with this. It would essentially be the same site that folks could go to, not only for this initial part of the survey, but then to see community projects that would evolve, should we, successfully, adopt the 1% renewal, and also to then see, these projects are funded by local sales tax dollars, so folks would see an accounting of where these dollars are going to.
So it's kind of a way to get a pulse of the community, so we know what they're thinking when they're in agreement to it. It's not the vote, it's the vote doesn't have total number, but because we want to make sure our people on board and help us guide to where we need to then concentrate efforts to convince if it comes back negative.
And yes, and as staff, we can't advocate pro or con, but simply provide information and stick with the process. So that's what we would do.
Well, this renewal is very important to our community coming up. And I'm glad to hear that this survey would be going out within 5 days. So, I think people may have heard us talk about this vaguely the last couple of times, and I think they're itching to hear what this is really about and get informed about it. I'd make the motion, we approve item 11E on our agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? May I have roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Mayor Pro Tem Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
And Mayor Allen?
And I vote yes, motion carries. We will move on to comments by our city manager.
Want to highlight some recent activities. We did complete the 15th to 17th water main with those switchovers occurring in the 1500 block of Main Street with the tie-in on the existing 8-inch there in the southwest corner of 17th. And they have sanitized that new portion there south of the gas station. And our street department completed the asphalt restoration in the 1500 block of South Main. And we are on schedule and progressing. If you remember, we found a significant intrusion on another segment of pipe that was right there. And so while we were there, the water department appropriately chose to remedy that at the time we had it exposed. The water reclamation facility installed the Pin Oak lift station. And I also want to highlight that Operator Reynolds has passed his Class 2 certification, so he's halfway there. That's good. Our street department, we want to highlight, this is a tree that came down in the high winds, and it's a healthy tree. It's not one of the dead ones that we're in the process of inventorying and assessing, so we can determine how to approach those. Just want to say that it happens. Whether it's a mid shaft break or oftentimes too with a lot of rain, the root structure becomes porous, and so the whole root structure base tips over as well. We're grateful that no one was injured. Want to highlight some upcoming community events. We've got a 4th of July event, kind of teeing us up for the big event next year. So it's our warm up. That'll be Friday, July 4th with the free band concert at 8 p.m. in Forest Park, and then also the Chautauqua Festival fireworks show at dusk. And also want to highlight the activities of our Franklin County Historical Society, who've been posting some interesting tidbits of history on everyone from obviously the Teddy Roosevelt that we see pictures here at City Hall, but also some, Frederick Douglass and some other folks that have also visited accordingly. And I think that's really cool that we have that unique history here in Ottawa. And then we have a one-man scramble going on July 4th to July 5th or 6th, I'm sorry, at the golf course. And that's a $25 entrance fee. And you can see the flyer here and also on our Facebook pages. And then our upcoming July 9th, 4 p.m. tentative commission agenda items, we'll have the mill levy fund review for the general fund, the auditorium, the debt service, and our library funds, as well as the final review of our 2026 operating budget and discussion of our revenue neutral rate, and also tentatively a review of our rural housing incentive policy.
And with that, that concludes my report, if there are no questions of myself or another member of the team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to comments by the governing body. We'll start with Commissioner Crowley,
I have no comments.
Commissioner Taylor,
Happy 4th of July to everybody.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Yes, on that, just be careful and remember, you cannot shoot off fireworks in the city limits, right, chief? All right,
We heard one as we walked in, so I'm not telling on anybody, but it scared me a little bit.
Don't do that, people, just don't do it.
Right.
And also just want to say about the splash pad, it's always good to drive by and see it's, well used, and so one of the problems, we probably should have made a bigger one, there's about 30 kids out there in the city that drove by, we're coming here, but that's a great thing, I'm glad we did that, and thanks to all involved in making that happen.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton.
No comment.
And I have none. We'll move on to announcements. July 9th, City Commission meeting at 4 PM at City Hall. July 16th, City Commission meeting at 10 AM at City Hall. July 23rd, City Commission meeting at 4 PM at City Hall. July 30th, 2025, City Commission meeting, 4 PM to be determined. So we'll watch and see where that one's at. We are needing, an executive session for 20 minutes. Do we have somebody to make that motion?
Mayor, I move that the commission recess into executive session at 8:33 for a period of 20 minutes with the city attorney, finance director, city manager present for the purpose of attorney-client consultation. The justification for the closed session is to engage in confidential and privileged communication with the board's attorney by KSA 75-4319B12. The open meeting is to resume in this room at 8:53.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The recess.